Okay, let's get started. So we're going to read The Smartest Giant in Town by Julia Donaldson and Axel Scheffler, two of my favourite authors since Janet and Alan Alberg. Okay, are we ready? Okay. George was a giant, the scruffiest giant in town. He always wore the same pair of old brown sandals and the same old patched-up gown. "I wish I wasn't the scruffiest giant in town," he said sadly. Can you see him there? He doesn't look very happy, does he? George left his old clothes behind in... Oh, sorry, I've missed a page. But one day, George noticed a new shop. It was full of smart clothes, so he bought a smart shirt, a smart pair of trousers, a smart belt, a smart stripy tie, some smart socks with diamonds up the sides, and a pair of smart shiny shoes. "Now I'm the smartest giant in town," he said proudly. Can you see that? There we go. There his very smart clothes are. We'll try and not miss out pages this time. George left his old clothes behind the shop. He was about to go home when he heard a sound. On the pavement stood a giraffe who was sniffing sadly. "What's the matter?" said George. "It's my neck," said the giraffe. "It's so very long and so very cold. I wish I had a long, warm scarf." Can you see the sad giraffe? Very sad giraffe. Hopefully you can still hear me. Give me a shout. "Cheer up," said George as he took off his stripy tie. "It didn't match my socks anyway," he said as he wound it round and round the giraffe's neck. It made a wonderful scarf. "Thank you," said the giraffe. Can you see? The giraffe's wearing the tie there. As George strode towards home, he sang to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." Can you see? He still looks very smart even without his tie. Hi Hannah, hi Libby. George came to a river. On a boat stood a goat who was bleating loudly. "What's the matter?" asked George. Can you see the goat on the boat? "It's my sail," said the goat. "It blew away in the storm. I wish I had a strong new sail for my boat." What a sad-looking goat. "Cheer up," said George as he took off his new white shirt. "It kept coming untucked anyway," he said as he tied it to the mast of the goat's boat. It made a magnificent sail. "Thank you," said the goat. Look at that. That's a huge sail. Fantastic. George strode on, singing to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town." Still looks pretty smart. George came to a tiny ruined house. Beside the house stood a white mouse with lots of baby mice. They were all squeaking. "What's the matter?" said George. Oh no, look at the house. Gosh, how terrible. "It's our house," squeaked the mother mouse. "It burned down and now we have nowhere to live. I wish we had a nice new house." Can you see? What a terrible fire. What a terrible thing to happen. "Cheer up," said George, and he took off one of his shiny shoes. "It was giving me blisters anyway," he said, as the mouse and her babies scrambled inside. The shoe made a perfect home for them. "Thank you," they squeaked. Look at them all jumping into the house. Or the shoe that's going to be the house. There we go. George had to hop along the road now, but he didn't mind. As he hopped, he sang to himself. "My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, My shoe is a house for a little white mouse, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. Ooh, that way. He's still pretty smart, huh? I like his yellow socks. George came to a campsite. Beside a tent stood a fox who was crying. What's the matter? Asked George. Can you see the fox is crying? It's my sleeping bag, said the fox. I dropped it in a puddle. I wish I had a warm, dry sleeping bag. Oh no. Cheer up, said George, and he took off one of his socks with diamonds up the sides. It was tickling my toes anyway, he said, as the fox snuggled into it. It made a fine sleeping bag. Thank you, said the fox. Look at that, perfect size for a fox. George hopped on singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, and one of my socks is bed for a fox, but look me up and down, I'm the smartest giant in town. Can you see? Still looks pretty smart. What's he going to take off next, I wonder? George came to a big squelchy bog. Beside the bog stood a dog who was howling. What's the matter? Asked George. You see the sad dog? Oh, there we go. It's this bog, said the dog. I need to get across, but I keep getting stuck in the mud. I wish there was a safe, dry path. You see? Oh, yeah. I'll get used to this eventually. Cheer up, said George as he took off his smart new belt. It was squishing my tummy anyway, he said, as he laid it down over the bog. It made an excellent path. Thank you, said the dog. Look at that. It's like a little bridge. The wind started to blow, but George didn't mind. He hopped on singing to himself. My tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, my shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, my shoe is a house for a little white mouse, one of my socks is a bed for a fox, my belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog, but my trousers are falling down, I'm the coldest giant in town. Oh no, his trousers, I like his spotty pants though. His trousers fell down. Suddenly George felt sad and shivery, and not at all smart. He stood on one foot and thought, I'll have to go back to the shop to buy some more clothes, he decided. He turned round and hopped all the way back to the shop. I sure hope he pulled his trousers up first. But when he got there, it was closed. Oh no, cried George. He sank down onto the doorstep and a tear ran down his nose. He felt as sad as all the animals he had met on his way home. Then out of the corner of his eye he saw a bag with something familiar poking out the top. George took a closer look. Can you see? There's a bag here. My gown, he yelled. My dear old gown and sandals. George put them on. They felt wonderfully comfortable. I'm the cosiest giant in town, he cried, and he danced back home along the road. You see that? He's got his old gown back. Outside his front door stood all the animals he'd helped. They were carrying an enormous present. Come on, George, they said. Open it. George untied the ribbon, and inside was a beautiful gold paper crown and a card. Look inside the card, George, said the animals. George put the crown on his head and opened the card. Look at that crown, isn't it lovely? Inside it said, your tie is a scarf for a cold giraffe, your shirt's on a boat as a sail for a goat, your shoe is a house for a little white mouse. One of your socks is a bed for a fox, your belt helped a dog who was crossing a bog, so here is a very fine crown to go with your sandals and gown of the kindest giant in town. Look at that. Isn't that lovely? Oh.